Hi, I'm Pastor Joseph from Culpeper Presbyterian Church, and I'd like to talk about the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. When we resumed gathering for worship in person, we used these pre-packaged elements when we celebrate the sacrament of the Lord's Supper together. They consist of a gluten-free wafer on the top with a little bit of grape juice underneath. And while these remain an effective option for sharing communion in certain contexts, like the midst of a global pandemic, or if an individual participant has some special health concerns, I sometimes find them to be distracting. The packaging is noisy and not great for caring for God's creation, and the wafers are, in my opinion, pretty bland. When I quote Psalm 34:8, "Taste and see how good the Lord is," I want the elements in our communion observance to point toward the goodness of God. I also miss the moment of serving communion to the members of our community, of telling each person that this is the body of Christ broken for them. So I've wanted to get back to practicing communion by intinction. Now, traditionally, that involves everyone coming up on the center aisle, tearing off a piece of bread and dipping it into the cup. That practice, while it's my favorite, has always had sanitary concerns with so many hands touching the elements. So I've been on the lookout for a more hygienic way to practice this tradition for some time. Once I found one, I discussed it with medical experts in the congregation, took it to the worship committee for their approval, and introduced it to the session, and that's what we're bringing back this Sunday. It's going to look a little different. Rather than tearing off your own piece and dipping it by hand, the bread will be placed on a skewer and dipped from there into the cup. Let's take a closer look. One of the elders will invite your row to come forward, and you'll wait at the front pew for the person in front of you to receive their bread. Then you'll come forward and I'll hand you your piece of bread on a skewer, saying, "This is the body of Christ broken from you." And from there, if you're sitting on the pulpit or post office side, you'll head to your left and dip it in the cup. The elder holding the cup will say, "This is the blood of Christ shed for you." If you're sitting on the organ or street side, you'll head to the right instead. Depending on how deeply you dip your bread, there might be a few drips. The elders have a cloth to catch those drips, or you can catch them in your own hand. I've always found it a meaningful confession that my sinfulness means that the blood of Christ is on my hands, and that washing my hands afterward is an equally meaningful way of remembering that in my baptism, my sins are washed away. Once you've consumed the elements, a trash can will be waiting for you to dispose of your skewer. And then you'll use the outside aisle to return to your seat to prayerfully and reverently wait until all have been served. I'll give an abbreviated version of these instructions again in worship on Sunday, and the prepackaged elements will still be available for anyone who prefers to use them instead. You can either get one on your way into the sanctuary or ask an elder to bring you one in your seat when your row is invited forward. I want to thank Reverend John Hagman and the people who are First Presbyterian Church of Morganton, North Carolina, for introducing this method of intinction to me. I also want to thank the docs for their expertise, the worship committee for their openness to this idea, and the Sanctuary Guild for their flexibility in preparing our worship space and our sacramental elements. Thanks for watching. Remember to love one another, and I'll see you Sunday, if not before.